Hope you guys are having an awesome conference. So I'm here with Scott Harrison, and everybody tells me, when I said I was going to be on stage with him, everybody says the same thing. Dude, his story's like amazing. He's notorious for being a very effective storyteller. And to give you an idea of Scott's efficacy, he's the founder and CEO of Charity Water. Over the past 10 years, brought the numbers are astounding. Clean water to 6 million people, 24 countries. That's 1 million donors with an average donation of $200. It's one of the most notoriously effective, transparent charities. So naturally, and this is going to seem like a weird pivot, and I know there's a lot of this at Collision, but we're actually going to start by talking about virtual reality. You have been experimenting recently as part, like, as Mr. Storyteller, with virtual reality as the next frontier, maybe, of how you get people to give. Give us at least a little taste of what that means, and then we'll take it from there.
Sure. I mean, I think one of the hardest things for us is to get people to care about this issue at all. I mean, we are trying to serve 660 million people that are living without access to clean water. Almost every single person we talk to here has never faced this problem before. You don't know anyone that's drinking dirty water. You don't know anyone who's walking 5 hours, and the stuff that we see, it's just so hard to bring back. So I saw virtual reality for the first time. I saw a very crude humanitarian film made in a refugee camp a year ago. And the lights came on, and I said, change all of the creative priorities, scrap everything else we're doing. Let's send a team to Ethiopia, and let's try to document a water project being put in a village and the lives that are changed through that. And I also realized, I guess, there was a limited amount of time where people are going to allow us to strap a television to their face and actually put away their phones. So you would get full attention for this limited amount of time. So we wound up getting a bunch of GoPros donated. We sent our team to a rural village in Ethiopia. We found this 13-year-old girl who had been walking for dirty water. Amazing story. Her mom had actually died of mental illness. Her mom had thrown herself off of a cliff on the road where she had to go to school every single day. She was taking care of her father and her 2 young kids, and she was only in school 3 days a week. It was just too much for her. The walking for water, taking care of the kids. So we find this beautiful girl, and we tell her story over 6 days, where her entire life is changed from a $10,000 donation. And you put on the headset, and the first day you're there at this nasty swamp. You're watching Salam, which is her name, drink water with cows and with goats, and you wouldn't let your dog drink this water. So there's this kind of shock. And then the next day you're in her house, and you see how tender she is with her siblings, and she winds up actually falling asleep. You just get a sense of how tired she is. The next day you're standing up on this ridge, and you see $1 million of drilling rigs and compressors and trucks roll by, and this kind of thundering machinery. The next day you're in the middle of the drilling scene. The entire community is gathered around, waiting to see what's going to happen. And then, of course, water shoots out. People go freaking nuts. Her father, Salam's father, picks her up and starts spinning around, dancing, clapping. And then on the 6th day, you watch her walk up to this completed project and drink clean water for the first time in her life. And it's a really powerful film. It's 8 minutes long. We shot it on no budget, really. And just to speak to the power of this medium, we had a man come in the New York office in December of last year, and he'd given a little bit to the organization before, so he was actually just coming in to be thanked. And he walks in. I spent a half hour with him. Some of his money had gone to Ethiopia, and I said, on your way out, why don't you just watch this film? So he puts on the headset. 8 minutes later, he takes it down, tears streaming down his eyes. He throws his wallet on the conference table and says, I'm not doing enough. And he writes a $400,000 check for 40 villages. So the one village, transformed 40. So, this film has already raised over $2 million. We're taking it to the streets. We've used it at our gala. So I'm so excited about the power of this medium to command attention, to get people to think differently, to actually feel something.
And you have a distinctly more challenging task in getting somebody to write a check. I mean, plenty of people in this room are looking for an activation of an app, or just sometimes, if you're media, anybody in the room, just getting to click an article. You have to
paywall.
you're trying to create a payment directly from a piece of media. Here's the problem I see there. There's a great VR company here that was doing something. Shout it out if you forget the name. I'm egregiously forgetting it, but they do like college visits, and they have a film they're they're doing UVisit,
Yeah.
and they're doing they have a film where it's like there's a modern dance and there's a lot of eye contact and it's delightful and intimate and uncomfortable. It was very moving and interesting to see. It doesn't scale well. There was a line. You were talking backstage earlier. You said a magnificent thing about how a crowd like this, right, that you're speaking to directly, is much more powerful to you than, you said, a video that might go viral online. So for you, you have to get an activation, but you also want to reach as many people as possible. VR has a scale problem. How do you deal with that?
It does. I mean, you know, we put it up on Facebook. It was seen in 360 by a couple million people there. We've been using it at conferences. We're now taking over public spaces, and you know, there is a line. People are really excited. I think one of the ways we're trying to innovate on this experience is, you know, if the old way was the charity stopping you on the street with a clipboard, you know, whether it's a Greenpeace or a Planned Parenthood or a Red Cross or these traditional charities, and they say, hey, please, can you give me your time and then give me your money? The VR is so interesting because we can stop people on the street and say, you've probably heard of this thing. Do you want to try it? So everybody wants to try this new technology.
As opposed to like dodging you.
Exactly. I mean, they'll line up. Well, can I see it next? Can I see it next? And then what we've been doing is we've been trying to go and get donors behind this initiative and have those views unlock dollars. So the value proposition to this room would be, hey, come and watch this film, and if you're willing to give me 8 minutes of your time, a $30 donation will be made in your name. Someone will get clean water in your name. So we think we can show it to hundreds of thousands of people, maybe millions of people. But you're right, it's still, you know, is that true scale?
And there's the problem of, you know, right now, everything online is the form number. I don't know what percentage of your donations come from online. I know the donor amount is smaller, and also online, if there's anything we know from the past 10 years of trying to market media, get people to get their attention graph on media in the past 10 years, it's that what is successful is entertainment, and then almost more so, you know, with feeds prioritizing video, entertainment media. I mean, I'm a journalist, I struggle enough. You are trying to show people and activate people's wallets from material that maybe...
And their hearts. I mean, we're after hearts and minds. So the one thing I've learned in 10 years you know, we've raised about $210 million, like you said, from 1 million people. You have to inspire people first. People are not waking up in the morning saying, oh, I need to go give money away today. Like, you know, let me Google good charities to give to. We give when we hear about an issue, when we hear about a need, and then we're given a chance, or we're invited to go and meet that need. So it's our job to, you know, go and find these inspiring stories, go and tell them in authentic ways, commanding as much attention as possible. That's why it's hard with a 2-minute YouTube video. You know, I can send a team out to the desert of West Africa and make a beautiful 2 or 3 minute film, but a kid is watching that, CNN's on the background, Donald Trump's yelling, you know, Snapchat notifications are popping up. It's so hard to make a lasting impact in a couple minute, you know, video. So that's why this is just these powerful 8 minutes. We've seen when people weeping. I mean, it is a really visceral experience. I think the same thing with a speech. You know, if you're able to talk to an audience for 45 minutes or an hour, and you can show them images and you can show them videos, and you know, you can take them through these story arcs and take them through the issue, people will. They'll give when their hearts are unlocked, and it's getting harder and harder.
Well, then isn't some of the problem moving forward for people maybe in the audience? You've got first mover advantage, right? You've got the luck of VR is new, therefore people are drawn to whatever VR experience they can. There's an opportunity for you. 5 years down the line, maybe VR is in every home. People are using it for gaming, entertainment. Yeah. The digital media companies.
The novelty's worn off.
The push notifications are coming in. Are you concerned that then you'll have to chase? You have to continue staying on the front edge on sort of non-scalable solutions that are exciting, or is that not a problem?
For sure, but I mean that's what the org has tried to do for 10 years is innovate along every step in the way. I mean, when we first started, just from a business model approach, I was 30, I was a nightclub promoter, so I didn't have any of the trappings of growing up under institutional philanthropy. And I looked at my friends and I realized none of them were giving because they didn't trust charities. And nobody trusted where the money went. And we would hear charities are black holes. I don't know how much will actually reach the people in need. So we said, well, this is a solvable problem. Let's just find a way to give away 100% of the public's money. And literally open up 2 bank accounts, one for overhead, we'll figure that out somehow, and then this bank account where every public dollar, whether it's literally $1 or $1 million, would go straight to the projects. And then we said, well, how do we connect people? And Google Earth had just started the same year, and we said, well, Google has given us a free place where we could put up every single water project and make that data set publicly transparent. And then we started crowdfunding drilling rigs, and we mounted GPS units to our drilling rigs and gave them Twitter accounts. So every time they drilled a well, they would tweet their location. So I think it's just, whenever something new came out, we said, how can we adopt that technology to serve people in need, to fulfill our mission, which is getting people access to clean water. So VR, I think, is one exciting tool right now to get people who would just not care about people living 3,000 miles away that are walking 8 hours a day for water. Like, that's not our problem. It doesn't. I remember speaking at a conference once with the CEO of Livestrong, and he stood up on stage and he looked out at the audience and he said, okay, how many people here have had cancer? A bunch of hands go up. And he said, how many have had a friend or a family member with cancer? And the entire audience. And then he begins his talk. I get out there and say, how many people know someone that's died with dirty water or has walked 8 hours a day? There might actually be a couple people, that'll come up afterwards and say, that was my childhood. I grew up in Liberia. I grew up in, rural India. But it's so much more difficult, I think, getting people to care. So you're right, we'll have to probably find that next medium of storytelling. I think it's less online. I think people are starved for these human interactions. So what I love about the VR stuff is it's tactile. You have a volunteer who's putting it on you and kind of talking you through. And we did an activation in Nashville last week. And the volunteers are saying, so how did you feel? And you have these really powerful interpersonal moments where someone who just watched this 13-year-old girl get clean water is kind of pouring their heart out and saying, this is how it made me feel. So I love that, the connection that people can have around empathy, around generosity, around compassion, and these conversations.
So one of the last things I want to get to, while we have like another minute left, is one of the things you said to me is striking, was surprising to me, maybe surprising to people in the audience, is Charity Water is now coming up on its 10th year. You have faced, I want to hear about the challenges you face getting into the latter years, because especially with something like charity, maybe as you get longer in tail, you get to a point where maybe if you've given to charity, if you made a lump sum 5 years back, I feel like I've done my part.
Yeah.
Regardless of what kind of business you're in, how do you continue activating people as a company grays and matures and becomes older after people have already felt like they've had their experience?
That's the challenge, and we think about that a lot. The average donor, if you look at the charitable sector, only about 15% of donors will return to the charity the second year. So think about that. That means you got to go and get 85%. If you just want to repeat last year's revenue, donation revenue, you got to go find 85% new people every single year. So we think we have a big advantage because we can tell donors what we did with their money. Most times you just give to a charity, maybe you get a tax receipt, they send you a nice thank you, but you don't actually get to see that well. The photo, the GPS, the picture, sometimes even a video. So I think we have an advantage there because people say, wow, I see the result of that, I'll give again. We're exploring a subscription model right now. The Sponsor a Child model had worked for so many charities. That was never right for us because there's not one cute kid that can write you over 8 years. We're funding a myriad of water projects in 24 different countries that have different costs and different technological solutions. But that is a key. What program could we build where people could give every single month and feel connected to a community? As I said, we've solved 1% of the global problem. So it is doable. I mean, there is we really believe there's a day on this planet where no one is going to drink dirty water. And we've seen a lot of progress over the last 10 years. The numbers are coming down. The problem is getting better. Charity Water is helping an average of 2,700 people a day get clean water. I want to add a 0 to that. I'd like to add 2 zeros to that. So I think that's the challenge, and we need to figure out how do we bring people with us where it's not just one and done. Hey, I heard about this, that's great, I'll go on the website, give $100. But how do we develop a relationship with our supporter over the next 10 years? They feel connected. It becomes something they even pass down to their kids or their grandkids. I don't have the answer yet.
No, sure. Scott, thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
Man.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Everybody, thank you for being here. Really appreciate it, and have a great rest of the conference.